Hi everybody, welcome to the Manifold channel. Today we're going to take a look at joins. Joins are really easy, and it's kind of unfortunate that a topic like joins has attracted so much mystery to it because this stuff is so incredibly simple. We're going to use Manifold Viewer just so anybody can try this at home, and if you want to learn about SQL, learn about Manifold, download the free Viewer product. It's the free read-only version of Manifold System Release 9. And what's a join? Let's say we have a drawing. Here's a drawing of, let's double click it open, a drawing of U.S. states. And these are the lower 48 states seen in latitude and longitude projection. That's sort of typically, horizontally distended projection in the latitude of U.S. And the table for this has, in terms of attributes, has the name of each state and has the geometry for each state. But it doesn't have anything else. It doesn't have the population. So if we wanted to color this map here based on the population of each state, we couldn't do that. Now, what we'd like to do is we'd like to add another field to the states table behind this drawing called population or pop or whatever. And we happen to have a table here, which we might have downloaded from the web or something like that, which for each state gives the population. And I'm going to control-click this to open it up in a lower pane. What we'd like to do is we'd like to take this population field and add it to this upper states table here. So for each state, such as Alabama, we'd have the population, which is 4,800,000 or whatever, and so on down. And we'd like this to be done in a smart way, so that the states drawing here, which is just the upper 48 states, the lower 48 states, and does not include Alaska, so when it pulls the populations from this table here, populations, which does include Alaska and Hawaii, those are ignored, so we only pull the populations for the states that we have. Now, to do that, we use a classic, what's called join query. And what do join queries look like? Let's actually write one. And command window SQL, and I'm going to close this populations field down here. So here's a command window for in Manifold, which we use to write an SQL query. And to kind of help us along, I'm going to drag and drop the states schema for the states table here into this pane and the populations table here, so we can use these to build a query. And we're going to do a select query. We're going to select, and now I'm going to list all the different fields that I want. And instead of just saying select name and so forth, I'm going to say what table I want that to come from. So we want to select the MFDID field. And the way you do that in Manifold is if you want the MFDID field to come from the states table, you say select states.mfdid. So that's the first field we want. And now from the states table, I'll double click here so that automatically puts states in there for me. States dot, we want the name field. I'll double click on the name and it writes name for me. So if these are really long field names, double clicking on them puts them into this dialog here without you having to manually keyboard them. So I want the index, I want the ID, that is, I want the name of the state. And now from the populations table, populations dot, I want the population field called pop. And now last but not least, I want the geometry field from the states table as well. States dot geom. Double click on that and there's geometry. Okay, so those are the fields that I want. So select those fields from, I'll indent to make this look neater, from the states table joined with the populations table. And that's how the syntax for using join. And I want to do that on a condition. And the condition is kind of like select this from that where something is true. In the case of join, you say select these fields from these tables joined together on a condition wherever the condition is true. And in this case, I want it everywhere where the states.name field is equal to the populations dot name field. And I can double click that like that. So that's our query. And it's no more complicated than that. Just select all the fields that you want from the various tables and name the two tables you want to join together, and then name the condition that's going to be what you're looking for. So when we run that query by clicking the run button, the exclamation point button, it runs the query, and what we have here is a table that indeed, I'm going to double click these tables open and minimize them, resize them so you can kind of see as we follow along here. And here's the states table. And let's resize that too. I've alt-clicked the title bar to undock those states. You can see that what we have here is the result of the query is a table that takes the ID field and the name from the states table, adds the population field to it, and adds the geom field from the states table. So this is a combination table. And joins are that simple. It just isn't any more complicated than that. Now, you might say, okay, well, that's really super, but what we have here is just a result table. That's the result of a query. And suppose I want to save that as a table here. Well, that's easy to do. We just add one more statement here called into. So select those fields into, let's call it a new table called states pop. And when I run this query, instead of getting a results table, it'll show me how many records it did. It did 48 of them. And it created a table here called states pop. If I open up that table, we see that it is exactly what we wanted. It's a new table that has the MFD ID field, the name, the population, and the geometry. And if you like, we can create a new drawing from that. Let's create new drawing. And it's going to be called a states pop drawing based on the states pop table using the geometry field. The coordinate system we know is latitude and longitude because that's what the geom uses. So we double click on the coordinate picker and we choose latitude and longitude. And now we click create drawing. And we've just created a drawing. If I pop up in this drawing, you'll see it just looks like the states drawing, except that this states pop drawing has a population field for each state. I'll alt-click, say, New Mexico, and here you see it has a population field. When you alt-click an object in a drawing, that opens it up in the record panel, so you can see the attributes. Now, if I go back to this original states drawing here, and I alt-click on New Mexico, you can see that the states drawing doesn't have a population field, but the new drawing that we've created does have a population field. And if we like, we can, style on that field. We can do thematic formatting and all that good stuff. Let me show you one other trick that we can do. And let's close this and let's close the states pop drawing. What we could do is let's edit this query slightly to get rid of that edit into, so that it's now just a plain ordinary query. When queries run on demand, it generates those records. Let's save that query. Edit, save as query, and we'll give a name to this. What should we call this query? Let's call this states with kind of a long name for a query, but what the heck, it's legal. What's really cool about Manifold is that we can take this query and we can create a drawing from the query. Create a drawing from the query. So let's create new drawing from that query. Again, we want to choose latitude and longitude and create drawing. Because this query creates a geometry for each record. And a query that creates geometry for each record, we can create a drawing from that. And when we open it up, we see that it does create something that on the fly that looks like the United States. And we can work with that as well. Let's close all this stuff here, all that stuff up here, and let's open a map that I created earlier. This is just a map with one layer, and it's a Bing Streets map layer. If we like, we can drag and drop the states pop drawing that we created earlier into that, and there it is. And we can thematically format based on the population field. So we can use style for that, style. And let's thematic format the record fill color based on the population field. And we'll use 8 breaks, and we'll use equal count intervals. Let's tally that. And let's use a color brewer palette. I selected it off out of the video frame because the menu's pretty big. Click update style, and there it is. You know, I think it's a little garish. So what I'll do is I'll select all these intervals and I'll lighten them a few steps. There, that's better. That's prettier. So that's how we use the states pop drawing that we created. What's interesting is that we can let's delete this from the map, and let's use this drawing here, which is based on the query states with populations. This is a drawing that's being created on the fly. It's actually being created from the states table and states drawing, with that population data being added on the fly in kind of like a virtual. So the query here is like a virtual table, and based on that virtual table, we're creating this drawing. But this drawing functions just like a regular drawing too, even though it's being created on the fly. We can style it as well. You know, we can also use the pop field that it has. And let's change this so that's equal count tally. And let's see, format this using a slightly different color scheme. Let's use browns to blue greens. Update style. And here again, I prefer a more pastel look, so let's lighten that a bit. Update style. There you go. So that shows the states that have the larger population here, like that. And the difference between the two different approaches is in the one case we use the query with the into it to take all that data and put it into a table. So we actually created a table here. This table is kind of hardwired. This table is actually sitting in the drawing. If the states drawing and table here were very large tables, and the population table was very large, we would create yet another very large table. When we're using a query like this one, which runs on the fly to create this geometry, it doesn't duplicate any of that data. It actually creates it as necessary. Now, to make all this fast, what we really should do is we really should have an index in the name field. If these are big tables, we should have an index on them. And adding an index to a table is very easy. For example, in the case of the states field, states table, we can just open that up, click Edit Schema, and click here, Add Index. And let's call it name underscore X. And let's make it a B-tree index, which allows duplicate fields and allow values and null values. Click OK. Oops, no key field. I have to pick a field here. Name. Thank you for reminding me, dialog. Click OK. And now we have a name index that's created on the name field. Click Save Changes. And we just put an index in the table. We can do the same with populations. Let's create an index on the name field and populations. Edit schema and create add new index, and we'll call this also name underscore X. Let's also allow duplicate values. Let's also allow null values, and let's choose the name field. It's going to be an index on the name field. Click OK. Click Save Changes, and we've added an index there too. Now, anything that we do with these two tables in terms of a join that involves the name field will be quicker. So, for example, when we run states with population, you can see that it's noticeably quicker with the index field, which is amazing because this is not a whole lot of records. But having an index can make things really fast. It's the difference between having like an instantaneous join with like several 100,000 records and a join that may take tens of seconds. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Remember, using a join is very simple. There's many different kinds of joins. We're using the simplest form of join right here, but this is the one that people want to use most often. Just select all the different fields that you want from the different tables. Select the two tables that are joined together from the two tables that are joined together on a condition, and this is the field that you want it to be equal between the two tables. And it's that easy. Nothing more to it. If you don't remember how all this works, there are topics in the user manual that show this how to do this. Open up the user manual and copy and paste from those topics. That's the way to go. Thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and goodbye from Manifold Land. Well, that was fun. If you want to see more, visit us at www.manifold.net. As always, Manifold delivers the world's most advanced, highest quality spatial products for GIS and DBMS at a low price that you can afford. Once again, that's manifold.net. See you soon.